Hello, everyone. I'm Dana Perino, along with Kimberly Guilfoyle, Juan Williams, Jesse Waters, and Greg Gutfeld. It's 5 o'clock in New York City, and this is The Fact. We begin with a Fox News alert. First Lady Melania Trump in the hospital after undergoing a benign kidney procedure. The First Lady's spokesperson saying she's doing okay, but will remain hospitalized for the rest of the week. The news breaking just a short time ago. So we bring in Chief White House correspondent John Roberts, who has more details. John.
Dana, good afternoon to you. We learned about a little more than an hour ago that the First Lady traveled up to Walter Reed National Military Medical Center this morning to undergo what's called an embolization procedure for a benign kidney condition. She said, or at least her spokeswoman said, that the procedure went well, that the First Lady is feeling fine, but that she would likely have to remain in the hospital for the remainder of the week. One of the reasons is when you undergo this sort of surgery, you want to stay quiet for a little while to make sure that the surgery takes in the way that it should. You also want to make sure that there's no bleeding or anything like that. So she'll likely remain there through Thursday, maybe even Friday. While we have not been told what the precise condition is, embolization therapy in the kidney is typically used to treat a tumor. Sometimes it's used to treat cancerous tumors, to try to shrink them down so that it's much easier to remove them surgically when you do go in to do surgery. In this case, we know that the First Lady's condition is said to be benign. That might speak to a different type of problem in the kidney called an angiomyolipoma. This is a tumor that's made up of epithelial vascular cells. That's the material that's made that your arteries are made out of. It's also muscle cells and fat cells, kind of all together in a little sac, if you will. Now, it's a benign condition. And if that, we don't know that the First Lady has that, but again, typically embolization therapy used to treat these angiomyolipomas. While they are benign, they can grow, and if they do grow to a certain point, they can begin to damage the kidney. There's also the risk of bleeding. So what doctors do is they thread a catheter up through the femoral artery, which is the main artery in your leg down by the groin. Then they go up through the abdominal aorta and then turn either left or right, depending on which kidney they're going to, and then deposit, for lack of more specificity, little tiny balls of a plasticky type of material, which then blocks up an artery, reduces the blood flow to the particular structure in the kidney that they're looking to get rid of, and that structure eventually shrinks and goes away. So, it's a complex procedure, but it's fairly routine. It's kind of like cardiac catheterization, where they go into your heart and they'll open up an artery, or they put in a stent. In this case, what they're trying to do, Dana, is block an artery so that whatever is in her kidney shrinks and goes away.
John, thanks for getting out there. I know that you had to run to the camera, but also we're lucky that I think we're going to be a medical student, which is probably why you can pronounce all those words very well. Thank you so much for that report.
All right. You bet. Thanks.
Now to our other top story, a huge foreign policy week for the Trump administration. The historic opening of the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem is met with violent protests along Israel's border with Gaza. Dozens of Palestinians are dead and thousands more reportedly injured. The Trump administration is also moving forward to try and denuclearize North Korea. Earlier in Jerusalem, the president addressed the crowd with a video message praising our country's friend and ally, Israel.
Israel is a sovereign nation with the right, like every other sovereign nation, to determine its own capital. Yet for many years we failed to acknowledge the obvious, the plain reality that Israel's capital is Jerusalem. The United States remains fully committed to facilitating a lasting peace agreement, and we continue to support the status quo at Jerusalem's holy sites, including at the Temple Mount, also known as Haram al-Sharif.
The White House says responsibility for the violence, quote, rests squarely with Hamas. During the press briefing today, Raj Shah was pressed on this. Check out this surprising exchange with NBC's Peter Alexander.
We believe that Hamas is responsible for what's going on.
So there's no responsibility beyond that on the Israeli authorities. Kill at will.
What I'm saying is that we believe that Hamas, as an organization, is engaged in cynical action that's leading to these deaths.
All right, Jesse, let me start with you on whichever part you want, either the significance of the day or some in the media's take on it in terms of the protests.
Kind of an asinine innuendo that they're just murdering innocent civilians because they want to. I thought it was pretty insulting, and he's better than that because he's a pretty decent reporter, so I don't have much to say about that. But I think what's making Trump so successful is how he became successful as a businessman, and he's translating it into how he's been a politician. He's a man of his word, and he's a man of action, and that's why he's racking up all these tangible victories. You know, I think in 1995, the Congress passed this relocation act for Jerusalem, and it took 3 presidents who did nothing and stood by. Now Ivanka and Jared are in there today for the opening, and this is coinciding with the 70th anniversary of the establishment of the State of Israel. So, of course, you're going to have a little clash, and you're going to have some blow-ups at the border, and that's to be expected because Jerusalem, I believe, is the 3rd most holy city for Islam. And that'll blow over, and you'll get the peace process back on track. I think Jared's doing a pretty nice job. You're going to have the Kushner Accords, and hopefully we can get that done. Maybe another Nobel Peace Prize that Juan can be envious of. And I think the president, when he does these things, it's because he doesn't care about offending the status quo. I mean, if you look at what happened with him defeating the caliphate, or them NATO countries ponying up their fair share, or tearing up NAFTA or renegotiating NAFTA, these kind of things, he doesn't really care about the blowback. And he also does the obvious. I mean, Jerusalem is obviously the capital of Israel. And it's obvious we need a border with Mexico. It's obvious China's stealing jobs. It's obvious that North Korea needs to be dealt with. And now he's doing that through the maximum campaign of pressure, diplomatically, militarily, even through Twitter. He's brought them to the table. They're going to end the Korean War. They're now, I think, totally imploding their underground nuclear testing facility. They're sealing off all the entrances. That's a huge step. Releasing the hostages is a huge step. So now you have this summit in Singapore, and it looks positive. We're going to go in there with clear and open eyes. I think the 5 should maybe go to Singapore and broadcast it since it's so historic, and we could all make the trip.
Do you want to talk about Venezuela while we're at it? Pretty much in every place.
Well, the Southern Hemisphere, Dana. We have some other tricky issues.
I would take issue with that other presidents did nothing. I do think that this president was able to say that conventional wisdom, that there was going to be the mass protests and the violence that we saw some of today, but that it's not the parade of horribles that people anticipated, Kimberly. Mm-hmm. And it is possible that the peace process could get back on track. There is a better path for the Palestinians if they want it. But I think that the other thing that's changed is also you have now other countries like Saudi telling the Palestinians, you need to get on board with what's going to happen here. And there should, if you want a 2-state solution, step aboard.
Right, absolutely. I think you make a very important point. When you look at this moment in American and Israeli history in terms of how it affects that area of the world, it's been completely fraught with problems for so long. And I think this was a really powerful move forward in the right direction. President Trump had the moral and political courage to be able to do this. It was a promise that he made to the people, and he fulfilled it. And I think that's important as well, to be a person of your word, even as you relate to diplomatic relations with other countries. That if you say you're going to do something and you make a promise, you honor it. I'm very happy that there wasn't a tremendous amount of violence. That's what people were worried about, that things would happen if this were to occur. I think it is definitely a step in the right direction in terms of the relationship, not only with Israel, with the United States, with the Saudis being on board, and now let's get the Palestinians to the table as well. Why not try? This is a first step in the right direction to be able to do that.
There was some violence. We do have about 51 people have died, and they say thousands injured in addition, and so maybe we'll find out more in the coming days.
But due to Hamas?
No, right. They were shot and killed by Israelis.
Okay. But the Israelis, were they defending themselves? I mean,
no,
I do
they
think
weren't.
And Hamas does try to make sure that the media is covering it in that way.
Boy, you guys are so one-sided. I'm surprised you don't fall off the earth, because it seems to me.
Well, because we're not flat earthers.
Because right. It seems to me it's so clear that we're in a situation where Israel is on the other side, literally, of a fence. But these people, you have 35,000 people, so it's much bigger than any Hamas, and you try to link it to a terrorist group. This is an expression of people who feel that they are being run over and run out of land and property that was once theirs, and that there's no longer hope for a two-state solution. Netanyahu has made it very clear. And President Trump, it looks like, by making this highly provocative move, doesn't care that the United States has a role here, potentially as a, we loved Israel, but we were going to be the force that negotiated some kind of peace, that brought finally some peace to the Middle East. Instead, we have obviously Israel firing at Iran, in Syria up in flames. Now we have unsettled situation here between Israel and the Palestinians. So what have we done? We're no longer seeking peace. Netanyahu apparently can do anything he wants. The Palestinians feel greatly aggrieved, and Hamas now has more martyrs, and you have extremism fueled at this moment. I'm like incredulous that you see this as good.
Well, I do think
I can respond.
Okay, I did have a good point. But
all right, go for it.
I was just going to say that it is in Israel's interest as well to try to calm the violence. It is in their interest to make sure that the Palestinians can have, that there is some sort of a two-state solution so that they can live side by side in peace. And President Trump also said that he believes that the status quo with access to the holy sites in Jerusalem should remain. So I don't think it's as bad as Juan was saying.
Well, I just want to step back and diagnose the problem is exactly what this is, which is we begin on one side and we end on another side. This is a prison. This entire issue is a prison of two sides. Either Israel has a right to exist or Palestinians are victims of violence. There's no other side. And the intensity of media coverage on this issue is the exact opposite of the level of understanding and interest of the public. The public is not as interested in this issue as the media makes it out to be. This is why we don't have any Middle East experts. We have more Middle Earth experts than Middle East experts. Funny. And so you know that when this is going to happen, they're going to create programming potential with retaliation. Well, you know that if you send out these balloons filled with bombs, you're going to get it on camera. People are going to die. And that's what happened. You get 50 deaths. The question is, does this display of violence and the suffering that occurs have any effect in a land where 4 decades of violence has been happening anyway? Clashes erupt after this embassy. Clashes erupt every single day. Every single day. We are jaded and confused about this area. And so I resisted this idea that this is the two-sided thing. The next solution in the peace process has to admit that the current way of dealing with this is going nowhere. Right. It's going nowhere. There's always, as long as there's always going to be violence, there's always going to be violence. There's got to be another way.
Well, now at least the question of Jerusalem is now off the table.
Yeah.
And then just really quick, not to minimize the violence or loss of life, what happened today, the prediction was that this would be catastrophic and widespread and create an incredible amount of tumult in an already geopolitically strife area. But I'm saying this is, I think, ultimately a positive step towards peace.
Okay. Stormy Daniels' lawyer has been relentless in his pursuit to take down President Trump, and now his actions are being praised as, quote, saving democracy.
But they gonna shine with you up inside. Gonna hit the club, gonna cut it up, burn it up.
Comes as no surprise that Michael Avenatti is on a mission to take down President Trump. He said so in more than 100 cable TV interviews on CNN and MSNBC since March 7th. But is Stormy Daniels' attorney actually fighting to save our democracy? That's what Avenatti's former Georgetown law professor claims.
Let me take a moment to brag on my former student. This dude right here, I think of him as in a Justice League with Robert Mueller to save our democracy. What Michael is doing is showing how the money came in. What Robert Mueller is interested in is where it went, how it flowed out of this LLC, and whether the big kahuna, Mr. Trump, had any portion of that.
Well, I think Lincoln was the one that saved the democracy, Greg, not this porn star lawyer.
Yeah, this is working out for him really well. He's getting $200 million in free TV coverage from CNN and MSNBC. He's basically doing a Trump version of stealing media. The problem is his goal, unlike Trump, is not to be president or a leader or help the country. It's to ride this media roller coaster to fame. That's what he wants. And the more it works out for him, the worse it is for the cohesion of a country, because for him to succeed, you have to cleave the country. You have to unseat a president, which is going to upset 70 million people. But underneath this all, when I look at him, I don't think it really matters to him what happens. You see him palling around with people. He's having a good time. Underneath it all, he doesn't give a damn if he wins or loses. It's just that he's going to get an hour on headline news and a new tanning bed.
What do you think he needs a tan?
I think so. He was tan at the start. He was tan at the start, but now he's fading. I call him the Golden Grifter. Ooh. He's going to be in the Justice League.
All right.
Good name.
He thinks
Dana, what does it say about the Democratic Party that they're putting all their eggs in the Avenatti basket?
Well, if they look at their polling, like President Trump's numbers are going up, and the Republicans' chances for winning some of these races in the midterms are definitely improving, especially even on the enthusiasm number, which had not been the case just a couple of months ago. I don't understand how any of the recent stuff that Avenatti is putting out, like about the Qatari meeting, for example, how that helps Stormy Daniels' case. It doesn't make sense to me. And I go back to the question I always ask, which is I don't understand what the legal outcome of success would look like to Avenatti. It doesn't actually make sense. Also, when they try to compare him to Bob Mueller, I mean, imagine Bob Mueller is like, this guy is a flea on the textbook of Law 101.
I like how you said textbook. I thought you were going to go somewhere else. Flea on anyway.
Kimberly, moving on.
What a show.
I still don't get it.
Avenatti's threatening a lot of lawsuits against people that are doing actual factual reporting on him.
Sure.
I mean, this is public information. He owes $1 million in taxes. His company owes $5 million in unpaid taxes. He destroyed this company he bought, lawsuits flying everywhere. But now he wants to sue everybody that says what's been reported publicly.
Right. Well, so he's a transactional person. This has become so much not about Stormy Daniels. Let's be honest. She's the conduit, the vehicle by which he is seeking his own personal fame and fortune. And he is doing his level best to make as many television appearances as possible and really fuel the fire for this whole thing. He's like the afternoon barbecue that never ends. He keeps stoking the coals. He's like, it's not done yet. Let's roast some marshmallows. So you have to look at what his own personal motivations when they showed up there at a court appearance that they didn't need to be at. There was nothing on calendar that as it relates to them, but they showed up, they stormed the mic and then went forward talking about this again, further promulgating his own personal appearances and desire to, improve his financial situation. So now what he wants to do is kind of bully people. If you say anything, report the truth about me, then I'm going to sue you. I mean, it's pretty obvious and transparent what's happening here. So he may have the tan of the Justice League, but I beg to differ as to his inclusion.
Yeah, he's on TV more than Kilmeade.
Is that right?
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
That is a lot.
Were you suspicious of him at all or no?
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand some of this stuff that's going on. I did understand that the president wouldn't admit that he had made the payment, and he said that the president and his lawyers were defaming his client, Stormy Daniels. And then, of course, we now know that, in fact, he was telling the truth, that, in fact, Trump had paid money through Michael Cohen for Stormy Daniels. So that all came out. And then all the question about, well, was this a violation of federal election law, the money being funneled through an LLC? Also, all that's come out, and it wouldn't have come out without Avenatti. But to your point, I think that there is a legitimate question about, well, this seems to be going way beyond Stormy Daniels, right? Mm-hmm. And so then you start to say, well, is it the case that he's like Trump? You know how Trump says he's a great counterpuncher? And that this guy feels like he's taking punches and people are going after him, trying to undercut his credibility, his authentic caring about not only his client, but about the fact that there are lies being told, and they're told all the time in public. And here he is saying, you know what, I'm the Avenger. I'm going to come and I'm going to clean up Gotham. I don't know. I don't know. You guys say it's about getting Trump out. I don't know. I think it might be about getting Trump to tell the truth.
I have to say, when I watch this theater unfold, she's being used, bottom line. And I sense when I look at her, she isn't happy about it. I think she knows the history of what happens when somebody is manipulated for another person's career. You end up becoming thrown aside. And I have a feeling she's just a conduit, as Kimberly said, for his fame. And he's no avenger. He's just an opportunist.
Well, in this past week, in the last several days, when he's made media appearances, he's barely mentions Stormy Daniels.
Right.
That's a really good point.
And he'll probably get thrown aside like most of these people do after they get their 15 minutes. Are dishonest politicians a greater threat than terrorism? Michael Bloomberg thinks so. Up next.
Hi, I'm Barry Sloan.
During a commencement speech in Texas Saturday, former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg said Americans face an epidemic of dishonesty that's worse than terror.
The greatest threat to American democracy isn't communism or jihadism or any other external force or foreign power. It is our own willingness to tolerate dishonesty in service of party and in pursuit of power.
My mic fell off. So Bloomy thinks words from Trump are deadlier than deeds from a terrorist, which leads one to ask, when Bloomberg was mayor of New York City, what do you think his #1 concern was? Fibs or terror? Do you think he woke up every morning and thought, my God, I hope someone's not lying on their tax returns? No, instead he was focused on terror. The #1 threat to New York City and America was and still is terrorism, not whether Trump exaggerates about Mexico paying for the wall. Point is, for Bloomy to express his own gripes, like climate change or smoking or gun control, first he had to keep the city safe so he could have the luxury of griping. So now, in a speech, when he reorders our concerns just to jab Donald Trump, he's committing the very sin he derides. He's falsifying facts. For the only way one can complain about partisanship being worse than communism or jihadism is to diminish the piles of bodies caused by both. But all of this could be due to one truth. Right now, Trump may make history with the Koreas, and Bloomy, he's whining about fake news out of college. That's gotta hurt. So, Jesse, do you think this was just some kind of hyperbole you do in a speech? He can't really mean that this is worse than terror or communism.
No, I mean, a lie didn't fly into a building and kill 3,000 people. But I am available, as we were talking about, to do commencements. If anybody's interested, I think I'd look good in the tassel. But
that was a nice outfit.
That was. I like the yellow.
We look like a waiter at the medieval restaurants. You know, what are they called? Medieval Times?
Medieval Times?
Yeah.
Have you been there recently?
I eat there every night.
Atkins friendly. I love the line about how do you know when a politician is lying? His lips are moving. I think all politicians lie. I would rather have a politician lie, though, about... I would rather have a politician lie about sex or about a crowd size than about not being able to keep your health care or a terrorist attack. There's white lies and then there's whoppers, and that's fine. This was clearly a shot at Trump and the people in the press that don't hold him accountable. But I think the fake news puts out maybe the same amount of junk as President Trump does, if not more. I mean, I have the Fake News Media Awards right here, Juan, and I'm happy to recite them. That's fine. At the same time, I don't think Trump's a liar. I just think he's a boaster. He's from Queens, real estate tycoon. This is the biggest. It's the best. It's the most expensive. And a lot of people consider those opinions lies. They'll fact check his opinion. He'll say, I'm the best looking president there ever is. And then the Pinocchio people fact check that.
Yeah, it's like a car salesman saying, like, a little old lady just drove this car to church on weekends and everybody's winking. It's a sale. It's what salesmen do. All right, Juan, should Bloomberg apologize to America for what he just did?
Right now.
I don't know where you'd have to start with the apology.
He has to apologize. Every single American, he has to start on one coast?
Trump.
Yeah, okay,
Trump should apologize. I mean, you know what's interesting is you said this is like so shocking. You should be surprised how many people in the intelligence community, I think back to Leon Panetta, I think of John Brennan, et cetera, right? People who say it is the biggest threat to us as a nation, this kind of divide, because it's just what the Russians want. We can't decide anything. Everything is a huge argument. Last week I wrote a comment. I said, you know, when you look at what went on in terms of the decision to pull the United States away from the Iran deal, the president, with his boastfulness, or however you want to describe it, I think it's persuasive to a lot of people because there's partisan support. They say, oh, the Iran deal has been violated. It was a weak deal. It's a terrible deal. And yet the fact is that the deal was never violated. The fact is that people say this was keeping Iran from having nukes. But now it's suddenly said, well, maybe it was a bad deal. Maybe it's just a partisan fight. Maybe he doesn't like Obama. Maybe he doesn't like John Kerry. And we lose sight of the truth. We can't even get anything done.
All right, so now Juan is deflected, Kimberly, to an entirely different topic. Let's stick to
totally
Bloomberg.
Different show, totally different
Bloomberg
segment.
is mad that he didn't run for president.
Oh, yeah.
That's what it is.
He's mad that he didn't run for president. He's mad that President Trump has honored his campaign promises and is checking off wins on the board. Anyone who loves this country should be happy that we're moving towards peace. Anyone should be happy that the economy is doing better. Anyone should be happy that there are more jobs here in America and that minorities are feeling better about what's happening in this country. There's so many accomplishments and things. And as it relates to national security and foreign policy, he has completely changed the dynamic. This is a new style of politics and engaging to create effective results. Why not? If you keep doing the same thing and you end up at the end result, why not try a different way or a different path to be able to achieve these ends? Also, President Trump is using social media and Twitter to be able to communicate, so there is transparency there versus someone regurgitating, going through it, and then putting something out. I don't think there's a downside to that because every person then can be the individual consumer and determine what you think of it versus someone telling you what to think about it.
I think there's a tremendous downside to constant lying from the man is the president, the leader of our country, and people can't trust.
Okay,
true.
We're never going to solve this. Is he lying? Is he boasting? Dana, clean it up for us.
Well, I would say, I think that every commencement speech would be more successful if it made no news.
Yeah.
The speech is supposed to be about the students and the inspiration for them to go out into the world to celebrate the fact that they're getting through college.
Right.
They're going to have a chance to go and make their mark on the world, and worrying about fake news is probably not the highest priority.
I want to do a commencement address for an online college. Wouldn't that be great? Just
Phoenix University.
Phoenix University would be amazing.
You're their top choice.
You know it. All right, a New York Times columnist has a surprising warning for the mainstream media about their Donald Trump addiction. Details next.
The first step to recovery is admitting that you have a problem. Well, New York Times columnist Nicholas Kristof is coming clean about the media's Trump obsession that is causing the press to miss many big stories.
I do think that we have to acknowledge that there is so much more happening in the world than Donald Trump. And we in the media are essentially all Trump all the time. The upshot is that we risk not covering a lot of really important things at home and around the world. And we complain that President Trump is parochial, isn't paying attention to important things around the world, and we're absolutely right. But that can also be said about us.
All right, Greg, and your favorite show?
I love it. Media guy interviewing media guy over media guys. Poor Nick isn't admitting that Trump is doing good. He could never say that. So instead he's saying, there are more important things in life than Donald Trump because his resistance has hit a rut. He's realized that Trump has run circles around him and his cohorts, and he's saying, you know what? Maybe we should stop talking about Trump because clearly it's not working. So he's trying right there to create a path of escape from the monotony of his own emotional anger, because every time you gripe about Trump every day, you miss out on the good things in life. It's true. There's a lot of good things going on.
True. Okay, well, you promised 3 minutes and 45 seconds of commentary. You fell short. Moving on to Dana Perino.
Well, I think that there's been a problem in Washington with media coverage for a long time, and it doesn't necessarily have to do with who the president is. It's that the Washington press corps focuses way too much attention on the White House itself, to the exclusion of all the different federal agencies, for example. Imagine, you never hear anything about the Energy Department. We might as well not even have one.
Give Rick Perry
what are they doing? Rick Perry's a great guy, but where's the press corps covering things that are happening there or at
Ben Carson? Where is he?
Well, I hear a little bit about Ben Carson. It's usually about personal stuff or ethical things. It's not about the policies. I mean, there's stuff happening all across the government that could be a lot more, that could be covered a lot more, or that should be a lot more transparent. But the White House press corps knows that the best way to get on air that night is to cover something from the White House. So there is a problem there. I don't know if Nick Kristof's got the right answer, but I think that's one way to expose other things within the government, not just from the Trump administration, but all governments should be answerable to the people, and it's not all just happening at the White House.
All right, well, so all departments, make some great points there. And then, Jesse, we've talked about this before, that recent poll shows media dedicates most of their airtime as it relates to President Trump, 91% of it, being negative, coverage. They're sort of obsessed with putting out this, really kind of a negative narrative constantly about what he's doing, despite whatever the accomplishments might be.
Yes, they're not covering Trump, they're trying to destroy Trump. And Greg made an excellent point. They're saying, wait, destroying Trump just makes him stronger. Let's try to deprive him of oxygen and cover what's going on in Yemen.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's going to work. And I don't think if we had the most boring president ever that the American public would care about Myanmar and Yemen. That wouldn't interest any readers in this country. It's a fact, no matter who's president. So it's a distraction, but it doesn't make any sense because no one's going to read it anyway. But listen, they're addicted to Trump because he rates, and he's a phenomenon. And I mean, that's just the truth of the matter. Trump is the story. He touches everywhere.
Just like Trump is the wall.
Yeah, that's true.
Trump is the national security. So they keep trying to kryptonite Trump, but it's just not working.
I don't think they're trying to kryptonite. You know, all the coverage is negative or whatever. It doesn't mean it's not true. The key here.
Everything he's doing is.
No,
negative.
I didn't say everything.
Well,
but
90%.
90. A lot of what Trump is doing, not true. You know. Anyway,
Israelis.
but I think that it's interesting to me because I thought you guys would all agree with Nick Kristof that, you know, hey, get off Trump's back. You know, why are you guys so focused on Trump? But I think you're right, Jesse. I think, you know, in terms of storytelling, everybody knows the stories people follow are stories about people.
Right.
And then secondly, maybe stories about events, and finally story about ideas. And if you get into Myanmar or you get into things, I think he listed guns, opioids, high number of people in the country who lack health insurance, and the genocide in Myanmar. I think, yeah, people say that's interesting, but gosh, tell me about Trump, because I know Trump. I'm following it. They're following it like a soap opera with the Trump, right?
And he was being dishonest. We talk about guns constantly. The opioids thing is out there. He was talking about, can we talk about the concerns that interest me?
Yeah, so it was just a little bit myopic in nature. A Miami high school creating an uproar after inviting the special guest to prom. Details next. Stay with us.
Welcome back. A Florida high school facing a backlash for taking its Welcome to the Jungle prom theme, well, a little bit too literally. Some students, some parents, and animal rights activists are outraged over this video showing a caged tiger pacing back and forth at the prom. Other exotic creatures were also brought in. The principal has apologized, but the school's marketing director, he's defending the decision, saying the animals were well treated and handled by professionals. What do you think, Kimberly?
Well, I mean, look, you know, you have these situations where they have, I mean, I don't know. I'm not a fan of the people who have like tigers and people like this, like in their pictures for social media, dating websites, that type of thing. These are wild animals, so you want to make sure to be careful and exercise due caution and be circumspect in terms of handling them. You know, I guess you have a jungle theme. That's not too crazy, is it? I mean, whatever. I guess the idea of it is fine as long as it's safe.
Jesse, you're the kind of guy that might attend a throwdown with wild animals, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see anything wrong with this. This looks like a great prom. I salute to the marketing director. I thought it was brilliant. I mean, what a memorable event. You have a caged tiger. You have all these other imported wildlife. I mean, that's fantastic. I don't see what the controversy is. The thing was in a cage. It wasn't going to hurt anybody. It looks fun. And now they're getting a lot of play on Fox News Channel. I know the school is Christopher Columbus High School. That's also could be offensive to a lot of people. But they doubled down. It's an all-boys school named after a genocidal imperialist. And now they're bringing in tigers, and people are angry. Hilarious. I think it's a win.
And taking like...
You like that?
I think this is a great promo. I think we should bring in tigers to most parties.
Jesse would be there taking a selfie.
Yeah, tiger selfie.
Tiger selfie. That's what people do.
What's wrong with it? They do it.
All right, so Dana, you heard from Jesse. They had birds, they had a lemur, they had 2 macaws, they had a fox. What do you think?
I think they could have just had the dogs, and then that would have been great. I had not thought of it the way Jesse just laid it all out there, and so I think that all of this stuff for all of these parties is a little bit out of control for my taste. But I like to stay home.
I know, but Jesse,
I'm not a party animal like.
So you've never been to the prom, Dana?
No, I went to the prom, but I just didn't like it.
All right, it's too bad.
Well, what do you say, Greg?
I'm against jungle appropriation. I think it's offensive. But I applaud this prom because it is a sign of a highly affluent society that we can afford excess proms. This is like a legal form of cocaine. It's proof that you have too much money.
Yeah, Tyson had a tiger.
Yeah, Tyson had a tiger. Our kids are so much better off than my generation, all generations, and because they're starting with more. They're starting with more technology, better technology. They have more free time to do whatever they want. They have enhanced options to do anything in life because of the free time, and they have peace, which a lot of generations didn't have. So the result of peace, technology, and time, tigers at a prom.
So they should stop whining.
And growl more.
Yeah.
Less whining, more growling.
So we're going to go shortly, but I had a question for the group. Anybody can answer. It's a
I won't go to the prom with you, Juan.
What? Oh, I would love it. But let me ask, doesn't anyone have concern for the animals?
Yes. I don't like it.
Okay.
Oh, well, I mean, we do, but I'm also thinking maybe they should stay in the cage. We let them out. I don't know.
In high school, aren't we all animals?
I don't know, like the birds, I don't really care about the birds that much.
That's terrible.
The lemur, care about it. The tiger looked like it was a little stressed.
Yeah, which is it? What is your
stressed out lemurs?
Animal spirit?
Can't have that, Dana.
But Jesse, you were terrified of a llama. Remember that time on Water's World?
That's true. But the llama was not behind bars.
Yeah.
Yes, that's
and
true.
last week, Greg had a one more thing about, was it a cat that actually was a lynx? Somebody didn't know it?
Oh, yeah. No, but that wasn't me. But it was Kennedy. I guess Kennedy and I look alike.
Well,
I wonder why.
That's why I wanted you to go to the prom.
I guess we all look alike.
Anyway,
oh my God.
What? Stay with this crazy show, because one more thing is up next to make you laugh, America.
In the jungle, the mighty jungle, the lion sleeps tonight.
It's time now for one more thing. Kimberly.
All right, in another segment of What's Your Name? Social Security Administration recently released an annual list of the United States' most popular baby names. Sadly, none of us have won.
Oh.
I don't know. I demand a recount. But let's start with the top 10 female names. Number 1, Emma. Number 2, Olivia. 3 is Ava, Isabella, Sophia, Mia, Charlotte, Amelia, Evelyn, and Abigail, to give you some good names. Let's go to the boys, shall we? As for the top 10 male names, no, it is not Jesse or
Liam.
Greg, or, it's
What
Liam,
is this?
Noah, William, see royalty, James, Logan, Benjamin, Mason, Elijah,
No way.
Oliver, and Jacob.
There is no way Elijah.
No Harold or John?
Right, isn't this
Or
interesting?
Jim?
Or
I'm not buying
Jasper?
it.
I mean, or Ronan?
No Marys or Helens?
I mean, what is going on around here?
Liam? Wait, Oasis fans?
No one from the 5 even made the top 10.
I know.
This is sad.
That's okay, because we're unique. We'll keep it that way. All right, I got one from Loveland, Ohio. Check this out. Doggy daycare, which, you got to love doggy daycare. Again, Greg, America is very wealthy, right? We have doggy daycare.
Mm-hmm.
This is Go Fetch Dog Daycare and Boarding in Loveland, Ohio. And they took a selfie, these dogs. You can see that one, the black one right there in the middle there up front. And then you can see there's a Vizsla there. See it right there. All the dogs in there, apparently they really know each other very well. They get along very well, and they have a lot of fun.
You make Vizslas very popular, by the way.
I know. Oh, Greg. Whoa, Greg.
Hey, you're jumping the gun there, pal.
Something about what?
All right, give him his walking papers. Let's do this. Greg's dog paddle news. We've been waiting for this video for months now. It cost us $60 million. One of the most extreme dog paddling videos ever. Roll it.
Wait, is that him? Oh my God.
There he goes.
You can do it.
There he goes. Unbelievable stamina. Stamina. You can see it. He's just waiting.
Is that a life vest?
Yes. And there he is. Makes it to the other side. That's my favorite part.
Oh, look, he's ready to go.
Yeah, he's ready to go.
That's how you teach him.
Yeah.
He looks like one of those little wind-up toys you put in the bathtub with you.
I like how his tail wags as he's
That's his little rudder.
pretty excited.
That's such a cute dog.
It really is, Juan.
Is that a
Over
Maltese?
and over again.
Wait, is that a Maltese?
Or we could go to Jesse. Jesse, what is that?
I have alligator video,
You have
and it's not in a cage at a prom. Check this out. This is in South Carolina at a golf course. This thing is prehistoric looking.
It's huge.
Well,
Look at the deer, scared for their lives, checking it out from a very safe distance.
Where is this?
They can outrun the alligator. This is in South Carolina. This is in Ocean Creek Golf Course in Fripp Island, 2 Ps.
Emily Schillinger has a house there.
Yes, and this
Good.
Oh my
You let all
God.
of her exes know.
Random facts, yes. What would T-Roy do with this?
T-Roy would kill it and bag it and sell it for a wallet.
Or give it to me as, where's my present?
That's about
I'm supposed to be getting a
250
hide
wallets.
from
That's
him.
true. That's a lot of boots.
What was that animal eating to get that big? Holy
He's old,
smokes.
A lot of golf balls.
And
A lot of
golfers.
golf balls.
A lot of missing golfers.
Clearly not starving, if you know what I
Juan,
mean.
we have some time now for you. One more thing. Nobody needs to rush you.
You can
All
have
right.
17
All right.
points.
So, as you all know, it's graduation season when young people in black scream, dance, and throw their hats in the air, right? Well, now, let's take the party to another level, folks. Take a look at this.
Okay.
That's Andrew Fustel aboard the International Space Station. This weekend, via a live link, Purdue's president, Mitch Daniels, an old friend, granted him an honorary Doctor of Science degree. Since Fustel was thousands of miles away in outer space, it was up to fellow astronaut Scott Tingle, who's also a Purdue grad, to put the hood over his head. And then, as you see, the two of them floated away. How do you beat that? Floating away after you get your degree. Holy smokes. Fustel is on his third space mission. He's a geophysicist studying biology. This week he's going to do his 8th spacewalks. And
talk about higher education, Juan.
Hey,
you beat me too.
But I just want to say to all you graduates from us at the 5, congratulations, and to parents and grandparents, congratulations.
Congratulations.
And those of you who decided not to go to school, I salute you.
Congratulations.
Kimberly and I are available for
We are
commencement
very
speaking.
available.
Online
Yes.
only. Online only.
Wait a minute.
You're going to do online.
Yes.
But you went to school. Why are you
I
congratulating?
regret every minute of it.
Oh, is that right?
Why does anyone want
Look how he
it?
turned out.
All right.
No one wants to invite us.
Mondays are crazy. Set your DVRs. Never miss an episode of The 5. Special report up next. Hey, Brett.
Greg is such